And I do want to say this. We do have some refreshments, light refreshments, some chicken and tuna fish in the back. So, yeah. Winglets, I should say. So please, if you have to leave beforehand, you're welcome to go into the rear and get that. Certainly, we're grateful for some of our civic leaders that are here. Good to see Sophia Reed from Eastchester, Miss Kathy Morris, who's our community ambassador, NYPD community ambassador for NYPD here in the Bronx. Good to see Miss Sister Betty Crawford, former president council of the 44th Precinct, Brother John Denton back there, and certainly to Superintendent Armstead, who's also a clergy liaison from 113th Precinct, and Reverend Dennis Oswell. That's my buddy. Amen. He's here whenever we need him. And so tonight we're going to get started. I'm going to ask at this time, Brother Pastor David Wright is going to lead us in prayer. I'm going to ask everyone, please relax by standing as we start our summit tonight.
Amen. We give an honor to God. He's the head of our life. Amen. And we want to thank God because he allowed us to first be here. We're glad to even be here in the presence of the Lord. And anytime we're together, we don't do anything without prayer. Amen. So we're praying. Father God, I pray right now that you have your way tonight, that you lead and guide us, God. We can't do nothing without you. We can't do anything without your presence, God. You are wise and you are all knowing. So lead and guide us on how we can be better in our community, how we can be better in our ministries, how we can be better in our churches, how we can be better in our homes, how we can be better in this city. God, we need you now like never before. You know what we're facing, Lord. You are the Alpha and the Omega. You're the beginning and the end. And somewhere in between, you're in the middle. You're right there right now. And God, you see what's transpiring. So I pray right now, God, that you touch us and lead us and give us wisdom. Help us to order our steps and not do anything that you don't desire us to do. Help us to say what you want us to say, walk what you want us to walk, talk what you want us to talk, and move how you want us to move. Only you can do this, God. You are the greatest power, and you have never been defeated. And we give your name glory, praise, and honor tonight in advance of what you're getting ready to do in this community. In Jesus' name we pray. Thank God. Amen.
Come on, let's give the Lord a hand clap. You may be seated. Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to our first annual Civic and Urban Affairs Department of the Church of God in Christ, our first jurisdiction of Eastern New York. We're grateful tonight, and we give deference to our jurisdictional prelate, Bishop James Pulling Jr., who's in the building tonight. Let's give him a hand clap. My bishop. And certainly we thank God for his administrative assistant to Superintendent Armstead, William Armstead, with us tonight, and our Civic and Urban Affairs Vice President, Pastor David Wright. Let's give him a hand clap tonight. And so we're grateful tonight that we're starting on time, number one. In the midst of an ongoing pandemic, we recognize that there is a role that the church must engage and be active in our communities, a role that we either pivot or die. Jesus was community-minded when most of his time was not in the synagogue or the church. But rather in the healing of the community, the healing physically, healing emotionally, and most importantly, spiritually. He recognized at an early age that he must be about his Father's business. During his ministry, he stated in Matthew 5:16, "Let your light so shine before men that they might see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven." We're honored tonight to have with us as our keynote speakers, the Dream Team, I like to call them, the Dream Team Queens. Yeah, and three historical women of distinction in the state and the city of New York are with us tonight. First, our first Black female district attorney in the history of the state of New York, our Bronx District Attorney, the Honorable Darcel Clark, is with us tonight. Let's give her a hand clap. Second of all, we have our first Black female NYPD Chief of Patrol in the history of the city of New York. Chief Juanita Holmes is with us tonight, and our soon-to-be, and hopefully she's soon to be arriving, our first Black female to be elected in the history of Bronx County to the Borough Hall as the Bronx Borough President, the Honorable Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson. Tonight's discussion is specifically aimed at church engagement and our civic responsibilities in our communities. The 3 areas of focus we want to leave here inspired to become more engaged in are these 3. Number 1, criminal justice system and the clarity from our district attorney tonight, the bail reform, and how we, the church, can become more engaged in our civic duties. And our district attorney, Clark, is going to come to us in that area. And then second of all, we're going to deal with the role the church can participate in helping to combat the violence plaguing our communities with NYPD Chief Juanita Holmes. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the role of the church in the political process with our Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson. We know right now that we've been going through over the last 19 months or so in the midst of this pandemic. We saw the George Floyd incident, and we've seen how crime has spiked, gun violence in particular, in our community right here in the Bronx. In our whole city. Matter of fact, put it this way, in the whole country, we've seen a spike. There was a mass shooting just yesterday in a mall, and we had a clergy summit meeting here not too long ago. And I want to thank God for Deputy Inspector Coleman and for especially Lieutenant Laurie Perez from the Bronx Borough Patrol tonight representing. And we had that meeting with our district attorney, with our Chief Lear, and with Councilwoman Gibson, dealing with specific issues, dealing with crime affecting our community. I believe that was after Labor Day weekend when we saw like there was about 5 homicides, I believe, in the 4-7 precinct alone during that weekend. And so we came together. Out of that, we came together. We came up with a solution. And tonight, we're talking about something called Ministry of Presence. And I want to thank God for Minister Kwame Thompson, who's here also. Let's give him a hand clap. He's the clergy liaison from the 4-3 precinct. And this is something that we came up with at leaving that meeting, trying to bring resolve. And we know that as clergy, we're not law enforcement, but we want to have a presence. We believe just a presence in the communities can help deter crime. And so tonight, without any further ado, I'm grateful, and she's on another engagement tonight, and she's being honored tonight. We're certainly grateful that she was able to stop by and take the time out to come and share with us. Let's receive our own Bronx District Attorney, the Honorable Darcel Clark. This is the mic you're talking. The other one's my face too.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you so much to your esteemed leader. God bless you for being here. To Pastor Jay Gooding, my friend. Anytime he tell me he need me, I'm going to come. Even though I tried to wiggle out of this, he would not hear it. Change the time of the event and everything so I could be here. So that's why I'm here. I'm being obedient, okay? Because that's what God would have me do, and He is the messenger through him, through Jay Gooding. So I received the message loud and clear. Thank you so much. To all the community leaders are here, and you all know who you are, and I didn't know who you are. So it's so wonderful to see you all here. To members of this church and all the clergy, thank you so much. To my sister, Chief Juanita Holmes. What did you call us? The Dream Team?
The Dream Team Queen.
The Dream Team Queen. Okay, I like that. That works. To Chief Holmes, thank you so much for taking the time, for caring about the Bronx, okay? Because you didn't have to be here today. There's a lot of things going on in this city right now, and you are in charge of a lot of things, but you chose to be here tonight. So I thank you so much for giving us your time. Yes, I am the Bronx District Attorney, and I'm in my second term. This is my 6th year, and I have to say that this is the most challenging that I've had in all of the years. Look, I'm not new to this work. I'm true to this work. And I started as an assistant DA in my office, the one that I run now. I spent 16 years on the bench adjudicating crimes, 13 of those years as a trial judge, 3 years as an appellate judge. And I stepped down from the bench, a very nice, lucrative, comfortable position, to become district attorney of this county, and I have never regretted it. I mean, it's something that I think that God brought me to be in a place for a time such as this, and I have accepted, that responsibility, and I don't take it lightly. I know he said I'm the first Black woman to be district attorney in the whole state of New York. I'm very proud of that, but at the same time, I want to make it count. I don't want to be just a footnote in the history of New York State. I want to make it mean something. So that's what I've been aiming to do the last 6 years. And one of the biggest things that I had to do was to engage the community. Because if you have a community that doesn't trust its district attorney, then we will have chaos and lawlessness. And I have worked so hard to walk side by side with members of the community, walk side by side with NYPD, which I could not do my work, Chief Holmes, without NYPD, without a Lori Perez over in the borough and Captain. So thank you so much for that partnership. We have to do this together. You know, there are times the community doesn't always agree with me. The community doesn't always agree with the NYPD, but you all need to know that we have one goal in mind, and that is the safety of the public of this borough and of this city. And each of us play a role in making that happen, including the community. And that's the one thing that I want the community to understand, that, you know, unfortunately, we have a lot of failed systems in this city. We have homelessness, we have mental health issues with people, we have addiction issues, poverty, poor education, a lot of things in the Bronx. Unfortunately, a lot of times we're first in everything bad and, you know, and last in everything good. And I've been working hard to change that narrative, but everyone plays a role. And because of those failed systems, the default becomes NYPD and the Bronx DA. So people get upset that we're in spaces that probably we shouldn't even be in. But had there been systems that are working or working together with us, then people would not be entering the criminal justice system in the first place. So that's the work that I try to do every day with the community. And a key component of the community is the clergy, is the church, is the houses of worship. You are in those spaces that we cannot be. You are the first line of defense when something goes wrong in a family. There's always somebody. There's a praying grandmother. There's a praying mother. There's a praying father. There's somebody in every family where there's trouble that they are looking up to the heavens for where they help come. And they know that it's in the church, and they reach out to the clergy. I was just working with Minister Kwame, called me yesterday, you know, and I know he's active there in the 4-3. He grew up there. I grew up in that neighborhood too. But you know what? The people in the community trust him. And a young man was wanted by the police. And you know what he did? He called Minister Kwame, and Kwame walked him into the precinct. Okay? So that's what I'm talking about, the clergy helping us doing. So that young man didn't have to fear. He had a man of faith with him, a man that the precinct knows and respects, and gave him the just, you know, due that he needed in order to make that step to go in there. He had somebody that he trusted to go in there. And Minister Kwame, having a relationship with the Bronx district attorney, reached out to me to tell me, I'm walking a young man into the 43rd precinct. I don't know the whole story. And he knows he got one side of the story. And he know I probably got another side of the story. But it didn't matter. The purpose was to keep that young man from being in trouble, for the police having to go out and hunt him down. A clergy person walked him in. That's the kind of relationship that we need in our community. Yeah. And that's the kind of relationship that I know Jay Gooding does all the time. He has been my partner in all things against violence, public health, you name it. When I need Jay, he's there for me. And when he needs me, I'm there for him. And that's the kind of relationship that I want to continue to build with the clergy. That's where the church always can come in and be helpful. You minister to these families. You know, I do this work because, you know what? You know, those failed systems is one thing, but I create off-ramps for people that enter the criminal justice system. Some of them don't need to be there in the first place. We need to get them the treatment that they need for mental health. I'm a big proponent of that. I'm getting ready to do a huge summit on mental health and the community, and the fact that people don't need to be in the criminal justice system. They need therapeutic services to keep them from going into the criminal justice system. So don't, you know, so, and I know the police don't want to arrest people that they know have mental illness. It creates problems. Like, they should not be the answer to that. A professional that's trained to deal with somebody who's in a crisis, because that's when the police get called. You know, families shouldn't have to call 911 because somebody in their family is in crisis. They should be able to call a behavioral health specialist that can help that person get through it. Sometimes the police end up in that space, and sometimes things go terribly wrong. And it's not always the police fault because they shouldn't be there in the first place. So we need to continue to advocate for those kind of resources in our community. And you know, that's what I need to do. But church is there too. You know these families, you minister to them, talk to them, let them know that the church is a way for them to get through some of their problems as well. You walk them into a mental health clinic, but we need to have more in the community. So you need to help us fight for that. So that way they don't have to call 911. They can call you or come in, you know, to Miracle Revival or somewhere else in order to get that done. You know, with substance use disorder, this very community, you see a lot of it all the time. People that are addicted. You know, this heroin epidemic, they think, oh, it's an epidemic now. It's a public health crisis. The Bronx has had that for as long as I can remember. Okay, right. I remember being a kid and seeing people addicted to heroin. This is not anything new. But when it started going into communities other than ours, communities outside of communities of color, when it was just us, oh, that's them doing that. That's what they do. Leave them poor people. That's on them. But when it went into the white communities, and I'm going to say it, or other majority communities, then all of a sudden it's a public health crisis, and they choose to treat it differently. We went through the same thing 30 years ago with crack. I know that because I was a prosecutor then, and we thought public safety was to lock everybody up. There was a difference between crack cocaine and powder cocaine, and so many people ended up in prisons. That's where the mass incarceration began. And you know what? As a DA, I got to own some of that because I was a drug prosecutor then. But that's what we thought the answer was to public safety. We know much better now. So that's why as a DA, I'm doing all I can to reverse that, making sure those people get the treatment that they need. I've created, you know, special programs to keep people from cycling in and out of the court system because of their addiction. We have the highest overdose rates in the whole city, and we lead that year after year. Things have to change. But again, you can be there for those families as well, not to judge them. Because that's one thing about the church. You're not here to judge people.
That's right. That's right.
You're not here to judge people. You're here to save them and to help them. And the people need to know that. They need to be able to trust you. Because I know they trust you more than they trust me. They trust you more than they trust the police. But if we all work together, that trust can be spread around so that people will know that the DA is not the enemy. I'm here to help, and I want to get them through. Justice looks different for every single case. I don't have a cookie cutter approach. It's a different approach for everyone. And it's always the least restrictive measures, wherever that ends up. I train my sisters to start at the bottom and work their way up. If they start at the top, which is where it was when I took over, charge the highest crime, charge as many crimes as you can. And if you get a conviction, ask for the maximum sentence. If you start up here, you're never going to go down to where the case probably should be. So that's why you start at the bottom and you work your way up. And wherever you land, you land. Not everybody is going to get a free ride. We got to hold folks accountable for what they're doing in our community. And the church, you know that as well. So accountability is key, and accountability looks different for every person as well. So that's what we need to continue to do. So when I'm asking the church to get involved, I'm asking you to do all of those things. Be Minister Kwame, like in the 4-3. Be Pastor Jay Gooding. You know, be Sophia Reed with our seniors, making sure that they stay safe. And I go there and speak to them all the time. Yeah. By the way, Eastchester Gardens seniors, amazing, that rating center. You get a chance, please go over there. Okay, amazing. Okay, Sister Betty Crawford, who served so many years, dedicated to this community, and she's still here. She's still here. Yeah. That's what we need. So then we talk about other things like bail reform, and you hear a whole lot about that. And first of all, I'm going to say that I am the district attorney. My job, like NYPD, is law enforcement. Not creating the laws, not making the laws. We don't do that. Come on. When the law is made, it's our job to follow it. How we do it is what's more important than the law itself. So when they came up with the bail reform, I got to tell you, after 16 years on the bench, 6 years as a DA, 13 years as an assistant DA, and being married to an NYPD detective who has 38 years on the job, I know a little something about criminal justice, okay? I got the real law and order in my house, I ain't gotta watch, SUV and SVU and criminal. I got it at home. But in saying that, I also knew that when it was time to reform these criminal justice laws. I know that. I presided over those cases. I prosecute those cases. I charge those cases. And it was something that needed to be done because in Black and brown communities, things were not fair. The bail or your status on a case shouldn't be determined by your zip code or how much money you make. If somebody is a violent criminal, whether they have money or not, it's still violent. And if they're supposed to be in because they're violent, then the rich man should be in and the poor man should be in. Not just the poor man and the rich man be out.
That's right.
And that's what the bail reform really was all about. That was the impetus of it, to create equity. And in doing so, the legislature, and it was not an easy job for them. I could tell you because I know a lot of them personally, and I know a lot of them struggled with it. And I know a lot of advocates that were very passionate in favor of it. And they came up with the laws that they came up with. Now, I'm going to be honest. I didn't totally agree with all of it because I thought it went a little too far. Right. But then I also think about how many years I was an assistant DA, how many years as a DA, how many years as a judge, where I saw prosecutors be able to ask for bail for a first arrest or somebody with 100 arrests, and those bails were set. The discovery laws where you get the evidence before trial, DAs that will hold it to the last minute because the law allowed them to do it, and then turn it over to the defense to their detriment. So that's not fair. And I don't want to be a type of person that does the work like that. So I think that bail reform was necessary, and we're following it. I trained my DAs even before they changed the law in 2020 that if it's a case where we're not looking for a jail or prison sentence, then we shouldn't be asking for bail on people. Right. And as I discussed that with my assistants before I created my policy, some of them said, well, if you do it that way, how do you expect me to get a plea from a defendant? And my response was, if that's what you're doing, then maybe you shouldn't be in this office. Come on. Because that's not what this is about. Right. This is about making sure that somebody returns to court and making sure that they have a fair process. And I changed it before the law changed, but then the law changed. So those assistants that didn't necessarily agree with it had no choice but to follow it. And that's what we're doing. So most misdemeanors now, the people are not bail eligible. The violent crimes, they are still eligible for bail. And there's some things in between. They needed some tweaks because there were some people that were taking advantage of the privilege that the legislature had decided to give them. After all those years of not being able to reform the laws, they finally reformed them in favor of people in the community, and some people were taking advantage of that. Committing crimes, getting out, going back, doing it again over and over. Hey, no bail on me. I could do whatever I want. That's not why the law was changed. Not for people like that. It was for people to be able, even if they found themselves in the criminal justice system, that they should be able to continue to go to work until their case was on trial, continue to stay in school, continue to take care of their families or their loved ones, and until their trial happened, not being punished before they were even convicted. So that's why they changed the law. So I was a DA that was in favor of the bail reform to make sure that there was some fairness and equity. Should it be tweaked? Yes. And come that following July, the legislature had to change some of the laws. They had to add some more crimes to it because of the public safety danger that was happening. And we're seeing more violence than ever before in recent history. This gun violence, and you've seen me out marching with Pastor G and everybody else against the violence. And I want to make it stop, and I want to come up with solutions. Bail is not the only solution that we have for that. But there's some people that's, quite frankly, that's out here hurting and killing us. And more importantly than this, it's not the community against the police, because in those crimes, it's us killing us. It's us shooting us, okay? So we got to hold each other accountable, all right? So, everybody knows that when something happens on your block, in your neighborhood, in your building, you know who did it, right? And are you going to the police? Are they going to the police? Are they cooperating with the DA? No. You know what we're struggling with? Retaliation, people taking care of it themselves. And that's why we have more and more violence, because it's a cycle. Something happens, they retaliate against somebody else gets hurt, they go back and hurt them, etc., etc. We need to break that cycle. We need to break that cycle. And we're doing more and more with the evidence that we can, surveillance, all kinds of things. But we still, need the community. The cure violence community, the crisis management system can be helpful because those are people who have been justice involved before. They understand what's going on, and they can stand in that gap where I can't be, where Chief Holmes can't be, where Council Member, soon to be Borough President Vanessa Gibson can't be. Okay. So they're there, credible messages to speak into that young man's ear or speak into that young lady's ear and say, you know what? You pick that gun up, it's going to be a ton of trouble for you. Ton of trouble. Not only, forget about the DA. It's going to be somebody else coming after you for doing what you did. That's what we're seeing more than ever. We had guns in school now. Last week, we had at least 5 guns in our schools. Now, we've seen what happens when guns have been schools in other places. We got a Parkland, we got a Columbine, we got a Newtown, we don't need that here. We got to stop them young people from bringing them guns into the schools. But more importantly, we got to stop the supply of guns coming into the Bronx because they ain't making them out here on McCombs Road. There ain't no gun stores out there. There's none on 161st Street. It's hard to buy a legal gun in New York State. We have some of the strictest laws in the country, but yet and still, we have 17% of the population here in the Bronx and New York City, but we got 30% of the crime. I got the most homicides in New York City right now, right here in the Bronx. It's got to stop. So I need you, the clergy, to be there. I need you to stand in the gap, bring those young people and talk to them, minister to these families, because that's what, we need you to do. Jury duty. You get them jury service subpoenas. I know. I don't know. Jury. And trust me, I'm a former judge. I have heard every excuse in the book. Okay, but if you really want to make a difference in your community, you need to serve on them juries. Think about it. If you were accused of a crime, would you want somebody like you to be on your jury? Just think about that. You're a reasonable person that cares about your community, that want to see people safe, that want to be fair, hold people accountable, but at the same time, make sure that there's not disparate treatment in your community, then you need to serve on jury duty. That's what I need. That's what we need you to do. So I do this work each and every day, as you can hear, because I'm passionate about it. And I do it not because I get to sit in that big chair and decide, who to charge and not to charge and all that, because I get to do that. I have a lot of discretion. But I do this work when I have to say, when that survivor of domestic violence comes to me and say, thank you for putting my abuser away. For that child that's being abused or sexually assaulted, when we save that child, when we do the work of our conviction integrity unit and we exonerate a wrongfully convicted person, that's why I do the work that I do. So I'm happy to be here to speak with you. I'm always happy to do whatever Jay Gooding tells me to do. Because again, I told you I'm obedient, But it's always a pleasure to talk to the community and let you know what your DA is thinking, how I operate. I try to be as transparent as possible and to let you know this is about a collaboration with everybody. And that's the only way we're going to save our communities if we all work together. So thank you for giving me this time. I know some people might have some questions, so I'm willing to answer some questions.
You gave out questionnaire 4. Now, nobody returned any yet because we're not going to open up for a public forum. But I asked you to write the questions down. I should have started that off by giving the ground rules tonight. So, but right now, since we're kind of few here, is there anyone that has it? Now, the questions I want to aim specifically for the church. It's not a community council meeting tonight, but I want to really have it specifically aimed for the church. How the church, and she touched on that. Let me just say this, Lord, it must be the pulpit. I ain't never heard of this. Talk like this before.
Well, I had to hurry up and speak before Vanessa Gibson, because when she's gonna up here, she's gonna start preaching, so I had to get mine out the way. Yeah, I had to get it out. So.
Any questions? And I'm glad that she touched on the Bell reform because, again, I've always had to defend our district attorney, because she's not the legislator. She's not the one that make the law, but she must be the one that enforces the law. So that's one of the things I know. She gets a lot of flack, and a lot of fingers pointed at her all the time. And I was on the program last week. I thought I was defending her on the program because it's just a shame that we're living in this day, and we understand that there's been something. I'll just say this, as she said, it was a great thing to help the community, but we know there's been some of the young men that's been arrested and go back out there and recommit a crime after, because they've been let out on bail. But I just wanted the attorney to kind of defend that tonight and speak on that. Are there any questions for her?
No questions, but I just want to thank her. Because she's a woman of her word.
Thank you.
And I think after you.
Oh, Sister Betty has one.
What I want to say is, I know the church is here to work with us, but our parents and our guardians over these children need to do more parenting than what are they doing, because a lot of the children are committing crimes and the mother and the father is in the homes. But the mother and the father's not paying attention. They want to party with them. And we need more of them to work. And we'll keep a lot of these kids out of these jails.
Well, let me just say, Sister Crawford, that's going to be our next summit. We're going to have a parent summit. But tonight, and I think it's so important because I've been one, my father taught me back in the day, right from this pulpit, 3 places where children learn: the home, the school, and the church. We've seen the breakdown in the home. We've seen the breakdown in the school. And so I'm glad tonight the bishop have allowed us to bring the church and get the church involved. And it's time for the church to step up. And so we want to have a summit. This is just our first summit tonight. And we want to have a parenting summit also.
But I want to answer some. You bring up a good point, Sister Crawford, because, when I go out and speak in the communities and there's a lot of tough talk that I have to talk to sometimes because I'm trying to reach these young people. I want to meet them where they are. And I talk to them face to face. And I say to them, look, I'm the Bronx DA. I got a well-resourced office. This is the city of New York, one of the richest cities there is, the largest police. Like, we got a lot of resources. I speak directly to them to say, what can we do to make you put that gun down? Just tell me that. If you tell me that, I'm going to try to make it happen as best as possible. And as I start making those statements and I start talking about the fact that all these shootings and people, not everybody died because we have a very good hospital system that's saving people from dying, and I talk tough. I said, look, these shootings now are real. They're serious. And I'm going to investigate them just like I would investigate if it was a homicide. And I started making statements like that. And people came back to me and said, you know what? I want to tell you what the community is saying about what you said. First of all, they did hear me. They were listening. Okay? They were listening. Some of the kids said, well, shoot, if she's going to treat it like a homicide, I might as well make it count. That's not the message I was trying to portray. So I knew that I had to change that a little bit. But also I heard they gave me feedback from the parents saying, we get what she has to do. She should, her job is public safety and she wants to keep people safe. But what about us? I have a kid that I can't do nothing with. I have tried. Who's helping me? And that's exactly right. So we need to do something to help those parents, to let them know that there's places they could go, people they can talk to so that they can keep themselves and their family safe, so that their kids, so when their kids walk out the door, they know they don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to come back. And every parent in this city worries about that right now.
Right.
So we do have to do something with that.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, D.
I think what the church can do with the young people, something about the value of life. Because a lot of these children, some of them think, they don't even think they can live on less than 25. We ought to bring it to them. Life is important. The church can reach out and life is important. The value of life. And then that way they find the value of life. Then they wouldn't be so quick to think life is so unvalued. Where they're so quick to pick up and hurt somebody. Think about your own life, and you're precious to someone else. So you got to have that same value for someone else. The church is that's an area the church can bring to
Mm-hmm.
From someone 8 years old to 80.
Right. I know that you had a meeting here last week,
powerful,
right?
yeah.
You know, so Pastor Gooding sent me. I knew it was supposed to be with young men and young people. So he always let me know what's going on. So I had it on my schedule. I said, wait a minute. I don't know if I should go there because I think they need to have their own space to really, work. So I called him and said, you don't need me? He's like, no, we got this covered. But you are doing what we need you. You meet with these young people. Find out what it is what they thinking, what they need. And a lot of times we have these meetings, like we having one right now. This was for the church and all that. But I don't see one youth in here. And that's the other problem, that I'm in spaces where I'm talking and hearing about people. We need this for our young people. We need that. But there's never the young people in the room. So at least you recognize that and you convene them. And I'm sure you're going to give me a report because I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that you need.
We had a follow-up in February. So I told them that you would ask to come. And so we're going to have you February to speak about that also.
I just met with the members of the West African community because they have been concerned about their young people. And we're seeing a lot of uptick in crimes in that community as well. And Councilmember Gibson knows that very well because she represents them. And we went to the mosque and had a meeting with them and they asked a follow-up. And I followed up with them yesterday. So they're going to set up a town hall for me to speak directly to their young people because they want them to talk to me, to hear what I have to say, but more importantly, for me to hear what they have to say. And then we will move on from there. So it's important to be able to do that.
So I'm going to ask, since our bishop is here tonight, I'm going to try to see maybe with our AIM department, our young people, maybe something we can have our district attorney come in and talk to our youth. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for giving me this time, Pastor G.
I was gonna wear purple today.
Well,
Always matching, always.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you did me too?
It must be the pulpit.
That's why I want to.
Give our Honorable Darcel Clark, our district attorney, a hand clap tonight. I can vouch, Kwame can vouch that she's one that's her question. She always asking, what can I do that you'll put down the guns? And that's her message out there in the street. And I'm so glad that we have a passionate district attorney here in Bronx County. Let's give her another hand clap. Thank you so much. Don't be getting no t-shirts made up for that. We're grateful that our councilwoman Vanessa Gibson has joined us. Vanessa, I introduce y'all tonight as the Dream Team Queens, and each one of them has a amount of history, and they're historical figures, women of distinction in our state and in our city. So next, but it gives me a great pleasure to present, and she's been the first Black female chief of our police department here in New York City. And we just believe there's greater things for her. We believe there's greater things for her. And we're just honored tonight to have her in our presence. And she's another one that when we invited her, she said, certainly want to come tonight. And I'm glad those that are watching. I know the weather held some back because I think I got a call from all of them today to see if we still on tonight. God, I was praying real hard, Bishop. I was praying real hard that God would turn the weather around. I want to thank God for Pastor Kevin Jones, too, who's one of our regional coordinators. I want to thank God for Superintendent John Perez, who's doing the virtual live stream tonight, who's also one of our coordinators from Newburgh, upstate. And this is something, as I said, tonight's the first time that we're doing this. This is something that Superintendent West and I wanted to do years ago. But tonight we finally got it. And again, I want to thank God for my bishop, Bishop James Pullings Jr., who's here tonight and gave us full autonomy to have this conference, this summit tonight. And we want to take it around the state of our jurisdiction. And so tonight we're starting here tonight, but we're gonna take it around all over the city and all over the state of New York in our jurisdiction represent. But tonight our chief is here with us, and we're grateful tonight, even for all of our men and women in blue. Let's give them a hand clap tonight. That's protecting us. What would we do without our police department? Our police officers go through so much flack, and over the last 19 months, They have really been going through so much, defund the police. But what would we do without our police department? I'm so grateful when I see Lori Perez. I've been working with her for over 11 years. I've been working with the borough, our Bronx borough, going back to Chief Timlin 20 some odd years ago. And that's when I first got started in community affairs. And tonight, I'm just so grateful that we have our chief of patrol, Chief Juanita Holmes. Let's give her a hand clap as she comes.
Thank you, Pastor. Yes, absolutely. So good evening, everyone. I want to thank Pastor Gooding and Pastor Wright and naturally the congregation. Thank you for all the clergy that's in the room tonight for being here. And thank you to my two sisters long time relationship. I remember when I met District Attorney Clark, and her passion speaks for itself. And we all know I'm just happy to be going before Vanessa Gibson. And I'm telling you, a friend, personally, business, and we all have our differences. That's what I love, right? We're all going to have our differences. We represent a different part of government, but we still come together. And I think we still share the ultimate goal of safety for everyone. And I don't think there's a person here this evening in uniform that doesn't know how I feel about the young people and in our communities, and they deserve an opportunity. They deserve a chance. And I think about what District Attorney Clark says when she speaks about the guns. Nothing more concerning to us. Why we're in a position where we carry guns. I don't want to see a child with a gun and thinking, oh, should I pull my gun, or God forbid, if I have to hurt someone's child, right? But I also think about the fact that what makes a young person have to pick up a firearm to begin with? And that is always a big question for me. I know we fight gun violence from both ends of the spectrum. Naturally, we have to prosecute recidivism, right? We have to address certain issues and naturally gun confiscations with our government partners. But I also think about this other side of the spectrum. Like, when do we see when a child is leaning in that direction? When do we notice it? And I can't help but think about, it's Domestic Violence Month. I can't help to think about, I was a chief of domestic violence. I looked at things differently. I was a chief of school safety, and I saw it. I saw where they have these incident reports starting when a child is young, domestic violence reports starting with the parents in the household, right? Then culminating with the child is a preteen, and now the child is becoming incorrigible and parents are calling. And I think somewhere we miss the whole point of ensuring that when that happens, not just taking a report and checking a box, right? And say we referred it to someone, but where's the follow-up? And that's why it has to be a collaboration with all the partners in whatever business it is, whether it's housing, whether it's homelessness, and everybody needs to come to the table. And part of my vision when I became chief of patrol was to sit down with community members and let them tell us what the issues are. Why? I first became chief of collaboration. That's when I first made, full chief, 3 stars. And I tell you, I had the pleasure of where it was right when we were doing reform reinvention. So as a result of such, I got to host all of the meetings around the city, meeting with community advocacy groups, parents, different partners that we work with. And they got to have a voice, and not just having a voice, but you saw that they wanted to be heard, right? They want you to listen, but more importantly, they want to be heard what their concerns are. And I listened to them about the police. And this was done during defund the police times, and all the people out there, not even from New York City, right? Defund the police. So, I often think about that. But the people that lived in New York City, we were communicating. They spoke about how they love their police. They just want their police to love them. That's right. They want to be respected. They want to be treated like human beings, right? It shouldn't be that you receive a certain type of treatment because you live in a particular part of the city. It doesn't work like that. And I often reiterated, when we took an oath, it didn't say protect and serve this part of the community or that. It said the community of New York City, right? And that's what we took an oath. We have a duty of care. I always say we have a duty of loyalty. That's what an oath is about. And Pastor, I know you all have oaths too that you've taken, right? And just to support the people around us. But it is equally important for me, right, to touch as many children as I can. We have a public school system with over 1 million children. And I operate with the chancellor, and you know, I know her. We actually are members on a particular board together. So there's a conversation about what can we do together for young people. And I know that 1,000 kids is a small amount, but for me to have a lieutenant that shared his vision about Blue Chips, and Blue Chips is a mentor group that we have citywide. And I know our District Attorney Clark was at our first event that we had announcing it in the Bronx, and so was Lieutenant Perez, and naturally the borough, and all the work that they do to make this happen. But to get young men 12 to 17 years old, not from one part of the Bronx, all over the Bronx, to come together and be part of a team. I don't care what team it is, whether it's chess, basketball, flag football, I think we're doing now. But think about that, because most gangs are formed as a result of living in different parts of the town, and, you know, or going to different school or having different friends. These children didn't even know each other, and they came together and they performed as a team. And then I can't, you know, shy away from the fact that the members of the service that are working with them, you know, we get pulled in 10 different directions. Our head count is low. You know, we lost a lot of officers to retirement. And if the ones that retired tapped out because they don't want to go along with the new way of policing, then we don't want them. You know, and I say that publicly all the time. If you're leaving because there's change to do the right thing, I don't want you working with me. I don't. I really don't. You know, we're in a position sometimes because of, at the hands of sometimes a handful of people, right? And that can be throughout the country. 12 bad apples, right? To give everybody a bad name. So that's something I often speak about when I have the opportunity to speak to groups of the members of the service, you know, that are out here to protect and serve you. You know, if you see an officer that's not doing or carrying out the policies and procedures, a cop is going to see it first. A supervisor may see it, but more than likely, that person is going to act out when there's management is not there. Right. So that's why we make it our business to say, you know, you're your brother and sister's keeper. Right. And at all times, I was that way as a cop, and they knew I weren't hurting them. You know, I had a cop one time, and this is a true story. My prisoner cuffed, trying to get him in a car. And he's a little frustrated because the guys doesn't want to comply, but he's not fighting with us. He just doesn't want to get in the car because he's yelling to his girlfriend, "Why are you doing this to me?" Domestic case. And I don't know if you remember how big cop radios were back in the days, but that particular officer lifted his hand with that radio. I remember grabbing his hand, you know, and saying, what the heck are you doing? You know, and he's like, he just snapped out of it, because cops are not robots. I always say that we have bad days, we have families, we have bills to pay, we have things that are not going right. So it's up to us to protect us, right? And community members. I have community members that'll say, you know, officer, you shouldn't do that. And sometimes they feel a kind of way about it, right? Because, oh, the community, we shouldn't do that. You know, think of it as I think of it as a good thing, right? I'd rather have someone in the community point out to me where I'm not doing something fairly or just than them filing a complaint against me, right? And that's where relationships come into place with members of the community. So I took this position that I have now, probably a year ago, always pushing community solutions. That is my model. I think that's how we get better. We have to have these relationships. Officers cannot come and police in a neighborhood and not be part of that neighborhood. This is your community as well. I don't care where you live. I know I spent a lot of hours in New York City when I lived here or when I didn't live here. And I would always say, this is my community too, right? I'm subject to the same violence as the people that live here. Right. But I have a responsibility to make sure that people, complaints, whether it's quality of life, whether it's safety concerns, whether it's the horn blowing or illegally parked vehicle, or these ATVs up and down the road, which, you know, drives us a little crazy. And no matter what it is, we really do our due diligence to try and address it. But it's still, if you got one person that's bothered by it, we still have work to do. And I just believe in it. But I believe that we all come together, sit down at the table, and we determine what's going to be the best way to address this particular issue or challenge that we're met with. And who's going to take the lead? And when we speak about the clergy, you know, this is not new. By no means is the clergy new. The clergy has been a huge part of policing for as long as I can remember. I've been here actively 33 years. And I always remember clergy, clergy, clergy. You are the most trusted person in the community. 9 times out of 10 is the clergy. And even way back, I think when I was first a brand new commanding officer working in Brooklyn North, and we started an organization with Chief Jaffe called Grandmother's Love. Right. And who will we partner with? The clergy. And then it went citywide. And why did we do that? A lot of grandmothers, as a result of their children being incarcerated or dying at early ages, whatever it was, they were raising their grandchildren, even when their parents were working. So grandparents wanted to know what it looked like if a person was in a gang. They wanted to know the language. They wanted to know the garb that they wore, right? And we would tell them all the time, search those kids' rooms. Listen, there's no locked doors in my house when you're children. And we would communicate that all the time. And I know how many firearms was brought to the clergy, right? When I worked in Brooklyn, or how much information was given to the clergy. Even if they're still grandmothers, you're still parents. I'm a realist. You love your children no matter who they are and what they're doing. So when I say I'm a realist, I know that everyone's not going to come and say, my son is selling drugs. That's just not going to happen. It's not reality. Or my son did a shooting, but it should be someone that they're comfortable with by having this strong relationship that they can talk to their child and maybe have that person come over and speak with the child. And that is the clergy. It is the clergy. 9 times out of 10, it's the clergy. And I've gotten calls plenty of time in the middle of the night, from clergy, just telling me they have a child that needs to be placed, a child that was involved in an incident, but didn't take place in a particular violence that had taken place, but was there, and want to communicate that because there's cameras everywhere. We know that, right? And 9 times out of 10, they help us a lot with, whether it's solving a crime, but even with eliminating people that may have been accused of something that had nothing to do with it. So there's that positive side as well when we think about the cameras that we have around New York City. But more importantly, anyone that's assaulted from behind and they don't get to see their assailant. That's what cameras help us with. So we want to do what's right and what's just. And, naturally, lawlessness cannot be cannot go unaddressed. We have to address lawlessness. But I stand with my sisters back here because I am an advocate for giving a person a second chance, right? I often say kids don't choose to be born into impoverished communities, right? They don't get to pick their parents. None of us got to do that. So I consider us lucky, right? There were some of us that were very lucky, but you have to think about the children that didn't have that option. So why don't they have an opportunity? You have to know about an opportunity to take advantage of an opportunity, and I say that, and I got a whole team citywide doing recruitment. And like it or not, people they really want, and maybe it's the media, right? Pushing this perspective to believe that African-American minority children, Black and brown children don't want to be part of the police department. Well, I can stand here and tell you that's not the case. I can stand here and tell you there's been challenges getting them hired. And I can tell you those are some of the things that we're working on. And there's a whole table of people working on that particular aspect. Why are they failing certain aspects of the job? Like psychological exam, right? Why is it? Because psychological exam wasn't written by the group of people sitting in this room. It was written by a different type of person for a different type of person. And that's the bottom line. So that's a national problem. There are 35 public safety, departments throughout this country that use relatively that same exam. It wasn't written for minorities and it wasn't written for women. I don't care what color you are. It was not, it wasn't written for us. It wasn't by design. So if someone doesn't stand up and say, listen, you need a different group of people at the table, right? Redesigning this particular exam, then we will always get the same results. That's what it is. Their aggression and hostility component does not account for me growing up in Bedford-Stuyvesant or growing up in Brownsville, trying to navigate the systems of being victimized. So I got to blend in, right? I got to blend in. I got to say, hey, what's up? I may have to dress the part just to get to school safely sometimes, just to not get pulled into a gang. So my level of aggression and hostility is not going to be the same as yours that was, we hung out with our friends, we ate every night. There was never a problem worried about whether or not we were going to hear gunshots or police car. It's completely different. So you cannot rate me the same way as you rate people growing up in a community such as that. It is virtually impossible. You can't rate me with those standards because I had to help raise 12 brothers and sisters. And trust me, I was Cinderella. So I was go to bed, make your bed, do your homework, right? So am I going to have a different level of, aggression than somebody that was, we went out to play with our friends, went to the movies, got a car when we were 16, went to college. Well, it's completely different. So that's something that the police department as a whole is looking at. And I always say NYPD, we set the standard. Whatever we do, people follow. So if we make that an issue, because it is an issue, other law enforcement, public safeties will follow. They will, because they've written papers about the same concept or the same issue that we're challenged with. So, I'm all about giving anybody an opportunity. This is the police department. I managed to just go through the rank from a police officer to a 3-star chief. I come from a family of 13 children, right? 13 children, parents born and raised in Brooklyn. Father didn't finish high school, but he was a laborer. My mother had back-to-back children, but we were fortunate enough. My father worked. So we bought a house at a young age, a modest home for 13 children, right? But the bottom line is we had that opportunity to do that. And, I often think back to that when people see families such as that in minority communities, because I've seen Irish communities with a lot of children. I don't think it's looked at the same. And I know that because my father's boss was Irish, right? And so he loved the fact that my mother had so many children because they believe in big families. But his family might not have been looked at as at risk. If I hear the 2 words at risk again, I will lose my mind because I still don't comprehend what does that mean. Every one of my brothers and sisters, and I don't say it like it's not supposed to be, they do exactly what they were supposed to do. They own homes. Our children go to college. Some of them are on a job or working in a different profession. All 13 of I know people with 2 children can't get it right. So, so I say my mother's no longer here with us, but I said at her funeral, job well done, right? A job well done. And that's how I feel. So I listen to when we speak about parents, we have to remember some parents, and I know because I looked into this. I worked in Brownsville, East New York, Crown Heights, when I was the commanding officer of PSA 2 in 2008, I think I went there. And I was there 2.5 years. And I just remember seeing young kids, 13 years old, doing shootings. Can you imagine? And I'm saying it's 3:00 in the morning. Where's the parent, right? But some parents aged out of foster care. They gave them an apartment. They give you a Metro card, maybe public assistance. We all know public assistance is designed to keep you in a mindset, I'm getting something for nothing so you don't grow. That's what public assistance is designed for. And I'm not saying that sometimes we don't need it. If we need it, use it, right, as a stepping stone and move on, get out. But it's designed to create in communities, hold on to this, don't make more money than this because you won't get that free money, which is nothing. So, it's often sometimes we have to think about the parents may not have had parental skills and they do the best that they can with what they know. And if that's yelling, get your tail up, get to school, because that's what was done with them. Sometimes we have to look for another alternative when it comes to parents. And I love the fact that you're going to have a parent summit because it is very, very important that sometimes they just don't know. So I don't point my finger at anyone, not a substance abuser, not an alcoholic. It's an illness, just like mental health is. And so it's not fair to do that, not knowing their walk through life, right? And I definitely don't frown upon anyone that's impoverished and trying to make it. Because I know a couple of cops, a couple of paychecks away from being in that same boat, right? So that's what you have to think about. And, I believe in just trying to, each one teach one. That's always my concept. So I have a lot of members back there. I have Sergeant Brown, who is, one of my biggest supporters. When I tell her, I tell Sergeant Brown, I said, listen, you go out there and you not only, and this is what I did with the last exam, we didn't only sign children up or just tell them, go on a computer, go to this website and figure out how to navigate through the system to register for the exam. I went to ITB, a good friend, Matt Frazier there, the deputy commissioner there. I said, I need some iPads because I want to personally sign these kids up. I don't want them trying to navigate through a system they don't understand. So Sergeant Brown, her whole team went out there. They were able to do a news conference on the last exam, right? Because over 30% of African Americans were signed up when they've never seen numbers like that in a very long time. And that was because of her efforts and her team. So thank you. Thank you to them. I can't. We now have another exam coming up December 3rd. The registration started October 6th to November 3rd. I'm sorry, it's in December. I forget the date. But the registration is October 6th to November 3rd. And with that, I believe there are about 3,000 people so far that they've signed up. And that's because I put it citywide. You got to do it citywide. And you can't have one team. Our recruitment team is 6 people. And I remember when I went to training in 2014, they didn't look like me. And I was in Brooklyn, Brownsville, East New York, 7.5 years, and I never saw them. Okay, so therefore, that told me you got to do something different. So I thank you to Community Affairs and, Lori Perez and just a team of people that get together and go out there and with this urgency, trying to change your life. You change one person in that family, one person, it spreads like wildfire. It really did. I didn't know anything about being a cop. I was in school. My bachelor's is in science. I wanted to go into the medical field. And I remember my sister, right? The job was predominantly Irish. Well, she happened to be dating an Irish guy. And as a result of her dating an Irish guy, he says, I'm going to take the exam. She said, okay, I'll take it. She went and took the exam. I watched them both get hired and they're working. I said, well, they don't seem so, stressed. They seem like they really enjoyed the job and the difference that, different challenges that you were met with day in and day out. But it was different than sitting in a little cubicle sometimes, right? Working, you had these differences that you were met with, challenges. You were able to help people and it just felt good. It was probably just the most selfless, self-rewarding position that you can probably take. And as a result of seeing them and speaking with them about it, I went and took the exam. And I came on a year and a half later than she did. And then it just spiraled out of control because then, this family member and this family member just took, but the lives that are changed. So I tell young women, because I'm out there with DV shelters, I don't care. I go to the developments. I sign up people, single mothers. And I tell them, this is the difference between you renting, right, and owning a home. Or, your child can, go to a different school, private school, whatever you want. It's here. And I don't want you to think it's just cops and robbers. We have doctors, we have judges, we have lawyers, we have teachers, right, in the academy. If you want to work out all day, become a gym instructor in the academy. We have it. We have management and budget accountants. It's a broad, perspective when you think about policing. It's like any other corporation. You need those other aspects of the corporation in order to function. So I don't want everyone to think initially when you come out, naturally you got to learn how to be a cop, right? That's what we come out to do, to be public safety. But there are different positions in there. So no matter what your desires, and then think about the scholarships. They paid for me to go to Columbia Business School. Paid for it, right? Harvard, law school, tuition breaks. My sister just got her master's, which cost her 1/3 of what it would cost other people. So believe me, there are opportunities here in this department. And that's my message. That's my cry to the community. If I could have it, everybody should be a cop. But naturally, we need plumbers, right? We need electricians. There is nothing wrong with a trade, well-respectable job, and probably pay more money. probably pay more money. So, my passion has always been working with the clergy, and I thank you for always being there for us. And I know that you're, naturally you have stand up to violence, right? So major, crisis management system that we have. And I want to speak a little bit about the crisis management system because some of you, most of you don't have the privilege of sitting at the table with the mayor like I do, right? And with my whole, executive group, the PC on down. And I remember it being a conversation about crisis management system, how they're not working. They don't work with us. We're not getting the results we're looking for. And I'm sitting there listening to that. And I don't go along just to get along. That's not they know that's not my personality. The PC on down, they know that's not me. My thing was, well, maybe if we had better relationships with them, communicating with them, right? Working together instead of saying, oh, go out into the park and do some flyers but really working to address violence, right? Yeah. Then maybe you would see the results. But you can't say you don't have results if you're not working with them. And let's face it, I have some executives throughout the city that does not work with their cure violence teams, but I have a lot that do. And so that's my mission, to really change their perspectives, right? Or either move them along into something else more suitable, if you're not willing to work with the community. And that's the only way we're going to combat violence and crime, is by working together. So again, thank you so much, Pastor Gooding. And, Pastor Wright, thank you. And thank you to everyone for being here. And I don't want to forget our virtual audience as well. Thank you.
Bishop, just before, because I know our district attorney got to leave, can I just get a picture with all of y'all? Bishop, come on, Bishop. Jurisdiction, Bishop.
I got to put the mask and they'll chew me up.
Oh,
He did. Bishop did ask me, and I told him casual. I had on my sweat. I got my sweatsuit in the car. You look like me, Bishop. Vanessa.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do this really quick and then I'll get out of your way. All right. Everybody looking this way. I know you like have your mask on, so I can't see your smiles.
About 10 pictures, man.
Can I get one too, John, David and Pastor Jones? On stage, come on, they're part of our civic.
Yes.
I'm sorry for the intermission. Photo op.
That officer take good shots. That's a joke for you.
Good shots. Good shots with a camera.
Camera shot.
Chief can't take one of them. Get all over.
One more.
Oh, we gotta get one deputy inspector. Come on, deputy inspector.
No, I'm gonna take the picture. I am excellent.
One more. This way.
I know you.
This light is messing me up, though.
I was
Oh, no, that's not working.
Over here, please, over here.
When I mentioned history tonight, I left out two things that's historical, and I heard them talk about tonight. Number one, before our district attorney leave, when the Bronx first had the gun buyback in 2009, one of the churches that hosted it here was the Church of God in Christ. We hosted here. And back in 2012, we had a second gun buyback in the Bronx, and was hosted up at Fellowship Tabernacle. And I think we still hold the record, if I'm not mistaken. We took 99 guns that day. Yeah, 99 guns was taken in. Yeah. They was coming from Soundview. And when Chief Holmes just talked about the grandmama's love, the first one for the Bronx was actually hosted here, Chief Jaffe. Yeah, it was hosted here in the back. So we also take a place in history. But it gives me a great pleasure tonight, and we thank God. Give our chief another hand clap. She did. Yeah, it must be this pulpit tonight. Something's going on in this pulpit. When the chief mentioned about the youth and the young people that's carrying guns now in the schools, Sophia Reed and me and myself was on a phone call this morning. We're trying to get something initiative started in one of the public schools, and I talked to Kwame about it. And the parent-teacher coordinator mentioned about a 9-year-old that's in a gang in elementary school. And they go out, he said they go up out at 9 o'clock in nighttime and beat up folk, 9 o'clock. So this is something that we have to address. We have to address. The Bible lets us know in the last days, and I often tell the church, the Bible is being fulfilled because the Bible said in the last days, perilous times, but yet we still have a role. We still have a responsibility in the church. And so tonight, you that are watching live stream tonight, we're hoping that this can be the start of something. One of the programs, and I've shared it with Chief Holmes and with District Attorney Clark. Matter of fact, me and her was on the phone last night to making adjustments on it, called the Ministry of Presence. And it's something that we initiated here from our clergy summit that we had on last month. And what we trying to do, we have 4 points, is that the clergy can be involved. And again, Kwame Thompson is a part of that. We wrote it up together. And we're trying to just get clergy just to be a presence in our community. Find out your community. Every precinct in the Bronx needs a clergy council. I should say in the city needs a clergy council. We have a very strong one, about 4 or 5 of them here in the Bronx that we're trying to help build up. Every clergy and houses of worship should be involved in their community-based organizations. They ought to know there was an incident that happened recently here in the Bronx. And, we're trying to get in some of the clergy. I want to thank Reverend Oswald. Where's he at? Reverend Dennis, he left? Yeah, okay. Some of our clergy, we went over to the precinct and just prayed that God would give a spirit of peace in the community. And that's not even the community that I serve in, but yet we went over there to that precinct. And so we want to have it where our clergy, that the community know who the clergy is in your community, that whenever there is some kind of civil unrest, the clergy can be in the forefront to help bring that peace. But as Chief Holmes said, they got to be able to trust you. And it starts here in the church. And so it's up to us as the clergy. And that's what tonight have been an initial start. And we do have the pamphlets, the brochures for the Ministry of Presence that we want to share. And I don't know if it's something we'll get started in the city, but we definitely want to get it started here in the clergy, in the Bronx community. We're going to start here first in the Bronx County and just get clergy involved. People always say in ministry, well, I don't know what I have nothing to do. Well, we got something for you to do, even if it's just being a presence. And it's called the Ministry of Presence. It's not about what you say, but it's what you do. And just being present speaks volumes. And so we're hoping that we get that off the ground. But tonight, I'm grateful for this young lady. I've been knowing her for about 8 years, and she's no stranger to us here. I think we're grateful for her, but after her next life and her next job that she have will be, I believe she'll be a clergy person because she's one that, and one thing I love about this young lady, and all of them actually, our district attorney and Chief Holmes, they all come from the church. And one thing about this young lady, that she always put God first in all that she do. And it's the favor of God that have elevated her. And we believe that she's going to be our next borough president here in Bronx County, and the first Black female Bronx borough president. And so early voting has started, and she'll share a little bit about that. But tonight she's going to come and talk about the political process and how the church can be a part of the political process. Let's receive our own, the Honorable Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson.
Peace and blessings, everyone. It's great to be here at Miracle Revival. To God be all the glory. I want to thank Pastor Gooding for his friendship, his commitment, his dedication. Anytime I call Pastor, he always answers. So I try to make sure that when he calls, I always answer. And just like the district attorney has said, Pastor Gooding has been a great friend. We have marched in the streets of the Bronx. We have stood with parents who have lost their children to gun violence. We have prayed over families. We have helped to pay for funerals. And we have done work in the church doors and out of the church doors. And it's really important that all of you are here tonight. And as I'm looking at this brochure, Ministry of Presence, I like the MOP squad. The MOP squad and what that signifies. And it reminds me a little bit of what I know Pastor Monroe's is doing in Brooklyn with the God Squad out of the 6-7 precinct, where you have clergy that are on call, that engage, that work with all of the different anti-gun violence organizations and the advocates, and do work around the clock. Like, this is not reactionary, but this is preventative work. And I want everyone to understand that we are not waiting for the next incident, the next crime, the next shooting to happen in order for us to react. This work has to be deliberate. It has to be very intentional, and it has to have a clear focus and a clear message with a purpose. As I always say, Operation SOS, save our sons and sisters, because our children are in crisis. They are at war with each other. They don't love themselves enough to value life. It is important that we have a clear message as we do this work, as we channel that energy that has to be fed into our communities. I could not be more proud of how far we have come. I know that times seem challenging, and they are. When I think about COVID-19 and the impact that it has had here on us in the Bronx, it is painful. It is heartbreaking. I lost my grandmother to COVID this year. It is very, very painful. But I am reminded that every setback in life is preparation for a comeback. And we have to be ready for a serious comeback here in the Bronx and the city of New York. So I am so grateful, Pastor, to you and to Bishop and to everyone, all the clergy members and advocates, so many of you that I've had the honor of working with over the last 8 years. It is great to be here. It is great to talk about the work we're doing, about moving forward, how we create the opportunities for young people and the safe spaces. And at the end of the day, how do we get to the goal? How do we make sure that we create those opportunities for young people to be uplifted and to be empowered, to take the guns out of their hands and replace them with jobs and give them programs, jobs that create opportunity, that create that pathway to the middle class. And so as I sit here on the pulpit with my sisters, I have been working so closely with our district attorney, Darcel Clark. She and I speak almost every single day, Pastor, as you do, because we are always thinking about what we can do better, because I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders, not just as a council member, but as I step into this new role, doing borough-wide work already with a staff of 5, to God be the glory, and looking at how we can do better, because I take all of these cases very personal. When we saw 2 weeks ago a 13-year-old shoot another 13-year-old in a Hunts Point playground, it devastated me. And then when we started talking to all the folks that were in the park, they said that it was an ongoing beef that 2 13-year-olds had. What kind of beef do you have where a 13-year-old gets a gun and takes aim and shoots at another 13-year-old? Or all the cases we've seen with school safety in our schools. Some of the cases would blow your mind. 2 teenagers that are arguing over a woman, over a female. 2 teenagers arguing over a cell phone charger. Like, this is what our young people are experiencing every single day. Think about the trauma that we are dealing with, not just from COVID, but being remote learning for 1.5 years, not being able to experience the time with our friends and the fellowship. And now we are thrusting our kids back into in-person learning, and we're not giving them the social emotional learning, the support systems, the therapeutic services, the wraparound care that they really need. And so to me, this is a call to action. It's a call to attention, because every time there is another incident, another act of violence, to me, it sets us back. It reminds us that the work is not done. It has been a great honor as well, working hand in hand with the NYPD, with my sister, our chief of patrol, Chief Juanita Holmes, who I appreciate and adore and admire, because as she says, she doesn't take nothing from nobody, and she speaks the truth. She sees the challenges and is ready, willing, and able to do the work. And sometimes when we're in these positions of power, when we're sitting at these tables and these seats and spaces, folks don't want to listen to us and hear what we have to say. Because sometimes if you don't get along and you stand for what's popular and not what's right, they don't want to hear it. But I'm about getting work done, about the assignment that God has given me, about the opportunity that he has afforded me for this time and this season and this reason. And I'm about doing what is right, not what is popular. Sometimes those are two different things. What is right is not always what's popular. It takes an incredible amount of courage and strength to step out and do something different, to defy the odds and say, we don't accept this violence. Our people are conditioned to think that this is the way to live in poverty, living around places where you can't even walk down the street with your parents. You can't go to the doctor. You can't go to the pharmacy without fear of being shot randomly. That is not normal under any circumstances. And we have to denounce it in all forms. And oftentimes I say to a lot of our advocates, we have to pick and choose our battles. There are some battles that we have to go through the trenches for. But then there are other things that we may sometimes have to fall back on. And I get it. And it isn't always easy to make these decisions, to try to find a balance, to support the work of the men and women of the NYPD, to criticize when needed, but compliment when needed too, right? You can do both. Just like we ask ourselves, we have to hold ourselves accountable for our actions as well. And I refuse, as a Black Caribbean woman, as a woman of color, to defend our people when they are a part of the destruction. It is not acceptable. And when you look at the victims of crime, of domestic violence and gender-based violence, gun violence, and you look at the individuals charged, guess what? They all look alike. They are all Black and Latino. They come from our communities. And so it reminds us that our work is not done. Families on both sides are traumatized. The individual, that mother that gets a phone call being told that her son is a victim of a crime, but also that mother that gets a call that says, you know what, we just arrested your son for assault or murder, and it's not acceptable. I applaud that mother that called the police when she found out that her son took a loaded gun to school. It's not easy for parents to do that. And we often say in the street, she dimed her son. But guess what? Her son is alive, and people are alive. Because you have no idea what this young man would have done with a loaded gun in a school building. My friend was a school safety agent that recovered that weapon. But what if that mother didn't call? What if she didn't say, you know what? I know my son is doing wrong. I know he's on a destructive path, but I have to protect my son. It's not easy for parents. So I appreciate you, Pastor, that you are having these parents come in, because parents need help. This new generation, this new wave of parents is different. They different, not from what my mom taught me, the structure and the guidance that my mom gave me. She had rules to follow. Sometimes these young people make up the rules. And so many parents are trying to be friends with their children. You have to be a parent. But we also have a lot of parents that are trying, but they need help. And they reach out for help and no one answers. And they know that their kids are on a destructive path and they're crying out for help, and we need to help them. And that's when I talk about the preventative work and not reactionary, because as soon as that young person's arrested, we have a whole wealth of programs for them. But where are the programs before they get arrested? Where are the jobs? Where are the safe spaces? Where are the mentoring programs? Those are the things that I hope that we will achieve and tackle as we talk about the MOP squad. Because it is all of you that are the change agents and the credible messengers. We need to make sure you understand that it's equally as important what you do outside the church doors than what you do here. Because a lot of young people, they're not coming into church. You know that. They're not coming into these spaces. But guess what? We know where they are. We should meet them where they are. So we talk often, Pastor, about Occupy the Block, Occupy the Corner, where we work with RTG, Guns Down, Life Up, Standing Up to Violence. We work with BRAG. We work with all the anti-gun violence organizations, and we walk the blocks Friday, Saturday night, 8 o'clock. Let's go. Let's go to these corners. We in Belmont. We're up in Co-op. We're in Gun Hill. We're going to Eastchester Gardens, right? We're targeting NYCHA. And let's talk to these young people. I guarantee you, when you speak to them, a majority of those young folks don't want to be in the street, but they don't feel like they have a choice. They're stuck in their neighborhoods. They are coerced into gangs because guess what? That's the only way to survive. And they will tell you, it's a travel for me to go to my school, and that's why I have to bring a box cutter to school. That's why I have to bring a weapon, because I have to protect myself. Because before someone attacks me, I'm going to attack you. That's the mentality that our young people have. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just being realistic and keeping it 100 about what we have to deal with. And so, yes, we have to work with NYPD. Yes, we need school safety, but we also need to make sure we have programs on the front end before that young person decides to take that box cutter or that gun to school. And I agree, the trafficking, gun trafficking is a big issue. Senator Chuck Schumer and others, we need the federal government to act, because it's too easy to get a gun in our neighborhood, too easy to get a gun here in our community from out of state. They're not coming from New York. They're coming from out of state, and it's so easy. And young people will tell you, in order for me to put down this gun, you need to offer me something better. I don't want to travel across Webster Ave or Concourse to go to the community center. I want one right in my neighborhood, and they deserve that. So one of the things that we're looking at, Pastor, when we get to Borough Hall, we want to make sure we put community centers in every neighborhood. We should have a beautiful YMCA in all parts of the community, just like we have in the Northeast Bronx, 60,000 square feet of beautiful space, of swimming pools, of just recreation. We're opening one in the South Bronx at the end of the month at La Central on 149th in Westchester. But now we have to keep going, because we know that these are the answers. These are the solutions to the issue. Poverty is not just a way of life, it's a state of mind. And a lot of our people are conditioned to think that this is an acceptable way to live. But I refuse to accept that. Right. I refuse to accept that funeral directors make money off of our communities. I refuse to accept that. We have walked these streets too much and for too long to continue to accept this violence in our neighborhoods. And so we have to talk about it, but we also have to be about it. We have to have actions. We have to do the work for our brothers and sisters. And we have to convince a lot of people, because there are folks out there that just don't see this work. Family, they don't see what's happening. They don't see government, NYPD, the district attorney. They don't see all the work that we're doing. It has to have an impact on them and their household. And so I look forward to more programs like this. A Grandmother's Love. Unfortunately, I have grandmothers that are in the program because they've lost their children. People like Jackie Rowe Adams and so many other programs. Eve Hendricks, who you all know, is one of my very good friends that lost her son Brandon last year. These families are broken. They are broken. But you know what? We are a part of the healing process. If we shower them with love and support, and we walk with them on this journey, because it is the most unpopular club to ever be a member of, to say that you've lost a child to gun violence. And the victims are getting younger and younger. Yesterday, I spent half of my day, Pastor. I didn't even tell you. I went to Rikers Island. Lord have mercy. I got there at 10 o'clock and I think I left at 2. I went to almost every jail, to OBCC, to EMTC. I went to Anna Cross. I went to Rosie Singer, and I ended at GRVC. And my whole spirit was just down, because there were folks there that just so unhappy and so angry, pissed off. We met a young man, and I felt so bad for him. He just turned 21 a few days ago. Guess what he was in Rikers for? Murder. 21 years old. And I said, my goodness, you could be my son. You look like me, brother. And it's like our brothers and sisters are getting caught up in the process, and they're making these mistakes. And guess what? It is setting them on a very destructive path. But you know what? All hope is not lost, because we may not be able to save everyone, but we can start by saving one by one by one by one. And it has to begin somewhere. It has to start somewhere. When you put together like-minded folks that have the same vision, the same values, and the same goals in mind, everything is possible. None of this work is impossible. If we try, if we care enough, we can get this done. And so just like Darcel, just like our chief, I am passionate about this work. I think about this every single day because I know at any given time, I could be the one that receives that phone call. And I want someone to help me. So it's up to me to help our community and our families and our children. And so I'm excited. This is day 4 of early voting, and the election is next Tuesday, November 2nd. And after the election, I am getting prepared for this incredible position to become the next Bronx Borough President. So my Bronx clergy and all of my family and friends and advocates and all of our men and women in the NYPD, please don't give up. Be encouraged. Be encouraged in knowing that you have a purpose in life. Be encouraged in knowing that you can make a difference. Be encouraged in knowing that you can be the difference. Be empowered. We have so much power and we don't take advantage of it. If we do anything in this world, we have to create a better tomorrow for our young people because they are the next generation of leaders. None of us will be here forever. But what is the legacy that we are leaving behind for these young people? Do we share with them? Do we show them that when you see inequity and discrimination and racism and destruction in your community, you don't stand on the sideline, but you step up and do something about it? That's what we have to teach them. That's the lesson and the teaching in all of this for each and every one of us. So I look forward to the work. It will not be easy, but I am full of hope. I am full of optimism. And most of all, I know that I got my God on my side. God bless you all.
Are there any questions for our councilwoman?
Oh, sure. Yes. Oh, hey, Sister Betty.
I would like to find out a lot of the buildings that you're building up. Are you planning to put centers and stuff for the young people in those buildings? Because as a board member, I've been working with the board for a long time. And I always said that it's too many buildings that's bringing up in the communities and nothing is done in these buildings. And we need to occupy the space and just don't leave it empty.
Yep.
The mark up on the wall, you will see it.
Yes.
We need to put something in there to make it valuable for our young people. Because you know, and I know, years ago with the radio, we had plenty of spaces, west side, east side.
Yes.
And we worked with the centers for our young people. Even we had one at midnight.
Yep. Oh, Saturday Night Lights.
Saturday night, we had midnight in this community. But we're dining down with our thing. We need these spaces for our children to occupy their mind, to keep their mind
Agreed.
on positive things.
Agreed.
So that's what we need to do.
Good point. So with most new construction, there are new regulations under HPD that will provide ground level, either retail, commercial. Sometimes you get a healthcare center, you get a charter public school, you get some commercial business like a supermarket. There are instances where we are building more community centers. And I actually have a plan when I get to Borough Hall. For every 5,000 units of housing we build, we should have a mandate on building a community center. And I want the new mayor to fulfill that, because with all of the new housing, we have school-age children and teenagers, and they have no place to go. Without community centers, without adding and building new parks, which we don't do enough of, there's no space and opportunity for young people. So that is something that I want to work on with all of my colleagues, because I think it's really important as you talk about population growth, as you talk about a need to make sure that we have these safe havens for all of our young people. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Parents too. Mm-hmm. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Crawford.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Any other questions? Brother
The
Kwame.
question, just a suggestion. Just
Okay.
from being out there in the community, like where we have the PALs, if there's some way we can provide transportation from the different housing developments to the PAL, because they can't really walk there or travel there. I think that's something we can do sooner than later, until we get community centers and everything, where they have a safe transportation from each housing development to the PAL, to the YMCA, and back. I think that would be a great start.
That's a good suggestion. I like that idea. Essentially, the only way we can get that done is we just need the funding. So if it's PAL, if it's Kips Bay, Madison Square Boys and Girls Club, if it's the Y, all we have to do is provide them with the money to provide transportation. And I agree. Most young people, if you think about the Northeast Bronx, why? If you live in Baychester, you live in Edenwall or Eastchester Gardens, you have so many young people in each of these developments, and no one wants to mix with each other. And they're all going to the Northeast Bronx YMCA. That's why I said we need to build more community centers, and we have opportunities. NYCHA, we have a lot of underutilized property on NYCHA grounds where we should be working to build community centers. This is all about the will to do it and the funding to make it happen. If there's a will, there's a way. We have opportunities. I mean, there are so many programs I think about that we've launched with the NYPD. Chief Holmes talked about Blue Chips. I think about Saturday Night Lights. I think about the Explorers program, the Police Cadet program, the Police Citizens Academy. There's so many opportunities where we can go into these communities that are hard to recruit, right? And talk to young people. But I also think that we have to have credible messengers. A lot of times young people don't want to hear from folks if you can't relate to what they're going through. You have to be able to understand what they're going through. Some of these families that, just need a lot of help and support, and really being able to offer young people something different. That's the biggest thing. You can tell them what to do till you blue in the face. If you don't offer them anything, it means nothing. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Let's give our councilwoman a hand clap. Just before I call our bishop to come and have remarks, and I'm just happy to have him here tonight with us and for allowing us, Bishop, to partake in this tonight. Thank you so much. I just wanted to, and I think everybody should have received a copy of the brochure for the mop squad, and I ran it by Chief Holmes and our borough and our councilwoman and also our district attorney. But let me just share with you basically the statement of purpose. It's not about what you say, but rather what you do, and just being present speaks loudly. The aim of the MOP Squad, and again, Ministry of Presence, will be to inspire and motivate Bronx clergy with a collaborative effort to be visible in their communities. We believe that a ministry of presence can invoke a more godly presence and help cleanse our neighborhoods of the current negative mindset. Kwame, you can come up here. You can stand with me, because this is me and Kwame, from our meeting that we had here, kind of came up with this. We desire to produce a positive shift in the atmosphere to the conditions of violence that is plaguing and destroying our communities. Our plan of action is to strategically engage local Bronx interfaith clergy to create and participate in an environment of a visible clergy presence in the communities that they reside or serve in. And we have 4 points. We have a 4-point focus, and I'm gonna just let Kwame read that. Oh, you need your glasses?
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
Jesus.
First, to activate the community clergy ministry. 2, to have clergy become more recognizable in the communities that they reside in or serve in by working with the precinct community council and community-based organization. 3, to help shift from a negative to a more positive atmosphere in their communities by a visible clergy presence. And 4, to assist and organize participation for clergy council in every Bronx NYPD precinct.
Yeah, so that's our 4 points that we're going to be doing, and we hope that we can get clergy involved, and something me and Kwame is going to be committed to, and along with our police department, working along with our police department again to build those clergy councils. And I'm praying this will be something that we get started here, initiated here in the Bronx, that can be probably, and I know as I believe Councilwoman said, God Squad, and I know Pastor Kevin Jones is here tonight. He's a part of that with Pastor Monroe's out there in Brooklyn. But so this is something that we're looking to do, and we need your prayers as we get this off. And again, it's going to take all of us. And again, that was the calling of this meeting tonight, of this summit tonight. And again, we hope to have this going forward. At this time, I want to receive my bishop, the bishop of the prelate of our first jurisdiction of Eastern New York of the Church of God in Christ, none other than Bishop James Pullings. I'm going to ask you, let's give him a hand clap as he comes.
God bless you. I want to thank our chairman for what a great job he and the vice chairman What? Right. Is he? Okay. I do want to thank the Lord for him also, to the chief, the district attorney, our elected official, to all of the clergy who are here on tonight, to all police officers, all of you who are involved in law enforcement. This is a very special time. We are doing something moving forward, and that's what I'm happy about. We must stop pointing the finger at each other. Right. Clergy pointing the finger at the elected officials pointing the finger at the police department, and the police department pointing the finger at the district attorney. That must stop. We must stop, and we must come together and begin to work together and support each other. I heard so many great speeches. This young lady did a wonderful job. Give her a hand. Yeah. And I enjoyed the young lady who just finished. I do thank the Lord for her too. And the DA. Oh God, you let her know. She was awesome. She actually answered a lot of things that have been on my heart and mind about the system and how it works. But we as the people of God, we have to come together. And the clergy, this is an opportunity for us to stop being reactors and become responders. We will be able to respond to crisis much better, because let's face it, this gun situation needs all of us. We all need to be together on the same page. It's easy to point at police officer and say, hey, they're the reason that the gun's out there. But no, it's all of our responsibility. It falls on all of us. And if we begin to work together and support each other and do these things that our chairman here has presented here on tonight, you will see results. And I hope I'm not out of order. But one of the things that I want from whoever becomes the mayor of this great city, it's all right to invite me down to come and pray for you. I don't mind that. But I want a seat at the table. The clergy needs a seat at the table. We got to quit being called after the fact. We need a seat at the table. We need to be involved with the process. And that will make a great difference in this city. God bless you and God keep you. Thank everybody for coming out. Thank you all, Chief. Thank you. Thank you all you officers. I just love you. And I am not for defunding the police department. Where are we going if we're going to defund the police department? Yes, correction, a little reconstruction. We do that in the jurisdiction. That's right. It's just part of the process in an organism. But defunding our police officers, no, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to live here in this city, and we're going to always need police. That's just a fact of life. But right now, I believe the police need us. I'm talking about the clergy right now. I believe the police need us to cooperate with them and work with them. You heard the DA, you heard our police chief. They're not trying to work without us. So now we have this invitation from them. Let's take advantage of it. God bless you and God keep you. And thank you for this space.
Thank you.
And just before we do our benediction, don't forget we do have some collations in the back, and I should say more than collations. It's light refreshments, some chicken and some tuna for the vegans. But I do want to acknowledge part of our civic and urban affairs team that is here tonight. I'm going to ask Pastor Kevin Jones to stand. He's our young man. He works for SOS in Brooklyn, and yeah. And man up, Pastor Jones. Just tell us what you do. Man up. All right. And that's Save Australia. That's my brother too. That's my best buddy. And I'm 1A in his book. And we thank God for family. And certainly we're going to thank God for Brother Superintendent John Perez. Let's give him a hand clap, who's live streaming us tonight. And he's our coordinator from upstate. One of our coordinators from upstate, up from Newburgh, and we want to bring it up there. Probably next year we'll come to Newburgh because Newburgh has some issues also that they're going through. And he's very involved in government up there. And Pastor David Wright was here, had to left. He's our vice president. He also from Brooklyn. And we certainly thank God for Superintendent Armstead, who's a clergy liaison from the 113 in Queens. Does a tremendous job in a pantry on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So if you live in, they giving. So, so we're grateful tonight. And I'm going to ask him at this time if he'll come just give us the benediction. And then please, you can proceed to the rear of our Gooding Hall and take you a plate to go. All right. And again, we want to thank God, too, for Kathy Morris, who's here. She's the NYPD Community Ambassador. It's a new position that our police department have organized. And Chief Holmes had a lot to do with that, of the collaborative effort. Also, our Bronx Borough Patrol. Again, our Special Lieutenant Laurie Perez. And certainly to our Deputy Inspector Coleman here from Borough tonight, representing our Chief Lear. We're grateful for y'all. I don't know, Laurie, would you have words? She's our community affairs person. Would you just give us greetings? Come have words.
Well, yes, all right. You know what? I'm gonna go. Man, oh man, do I have big shoes to follow today. Thank you, Pastor G, for having me in such illustrious company. I would like to say I know most of you guys today. I'm appreciative of being here. I'm looking forward to starting this mock program. I want to say that I think, I kind of was here in the ground, the ground level of this coming about, because I really sent an impassioned letter to Pastor G and Minister Kwame and all of our clergy liaisons saying, please, we need your help. We need your help. Unfortunately, when COVID shut down the churches, it shut down a lot of that connection we had with the community. And it really, really hurt us when we needed it the most, so we need to bring that back now. We need to bring it back. We need you guys. I'm not afraid to say it. We need you guys, like we said, like before the problems arise. When we see it, let us know. And these gentlemen, they know it. They do it. They're already doing it. But I need these two to now, each one teach one. Take a couple of your fellow clergy people and really show them how it's done, because you guys are the gold standard. You guys are definitely the gold standard of what clergy liaisons are for the NYPD. So I'm so appreciative. I look forward to working more with you. Hopefully we'll blast this out to all the clergy that I have in my database, and we can get this going, because we need it. We need you. We need the community. We need all of you. And thank you so much.
All right. I think that concludes. And again, I want to thank God for Brother John Denton, who's here from the 34th Precinct. And he's the nephew of Evangelist Amanda Denton. And they're here tonight. And I think he's actually working recruitment. He's one of the ones that's working recruitment and getting us involved and getting the community involved in recruiting them and thank all the officers tonight that are here. I see we have some of our clergy from our 4-9 community council, our clergy council too, Elder Rebe, who's always there on point. Matter of fact, come on, Elder Rebe, give us the benediction tonight. I'm gonna ask you to give us the. And we're grateful tonight. Again, I want to thank God for our bishop who allowed us. And again, this was a Kojic effort tonight. And again, I said we make no excuses for who's not here tonight, but we thank God for you that are here and you that are watching virtually tonight. As we stand to our feet, Elder Rebe gonna give us the benediction. And don't forget, please process to the rear that you can get some chicken.
Let us bow our heads. Father, in your most holy and righteous and everlasting name, we just come before you, thanking you for your mercy and your grace. We thank you for your love and your protection. We thank you for this meeting, oh God, and we just ask in the name of Jesus that you continue to guide us, direct us, show us where we need to be and what we need to do, that the communities might shift. We ask for the shifting of the internal of us, oh God. Shift the atmosphere internally, shift the atmosphere externally, shift the atmosphere in homes, from dark to light, oh God, from hate to love, oh God. Just shift us and use us in your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Thank you.